That's what we face. We face that right there. We see big corporate America hoarding the profits, buying back their stock instead of investing in job creation when we're going through the worst economic time since the Depression.
We've just on the small business issue alone, we have cut taxes for small businesses 8 times during the course of the last 18 months. So we're hardly Johnny-come-latelys on this issue. Now, when you put all the things we've done together, it has made a difference. 3 million people have jobs that wouldn't have them otherwise had we not taken these steps. The economy would be in much worse shape. But as I said before, we're not where we need to go yet, which means that if we're not there yet, what else can we do? And the proposals that we've put forward are ones that historically, again, have garnered bipartisan support.
Democrats are putting politics over prosperity.
There are legitimate values in outsourcing, not only jobs, but work.
That's the Chamber of Commerce, an organization that takes foreign donations, that advocates for outsourcing, and that is now among the biggest players in this year's elections. They're running tens of millions of dollars of almost entirely anti-Democrat ads.
In my view, and in the view of many people in the Democratic caucus, what we should be doing is using a lot of that $700 billion for infrastructure improvement, rebuilding our roads, our bridges, our rail systems, our water systems. And when you do that, over a period of time, you're going to create millions of good-paying jobs.
Also, remember, people at the top, if they did get that one-year extension that they did not expect, that would put a huge hole in the budget deficit that apparently, and I think justifiably, many people, Republicans and others, are very concerned about. That, in fact, millionaires and millionaire families would get next year, if the Bush tax cut were extended, $31 billion. $31 billion that could otherwise be used to, say, save the jobs of teachers or police officers or firefighters who would use their money and who would spend it and whose jobs are very important.
And a small business called McElhaney. The McElhaney family selling their Tabasco brand pepper sauce out of their kitchen to 160 countries. A small business.
But that personal and collective economic disaster does have a silver lining. As the jobs numbers get pushed into even worse territory than they are already in, that might be great news for Republicans in the elections. The last major jobs report before the election came out today. Some private sector job gains, but otherwise not good. Not good for the unemployed, not good for the employed but still struggling in a lousy economy, not good for the economy itself, not good for the country. If only we had some sort of non-controversial, effective, efficient, bipartisan endorsed jobs program. Of course, that wouldn't be good for the Republicans. They'd probably block it.
I'll tell you something. You know, I'm on the floor of the Senate a whole lot, and it astounds me that on every single issue of significance, no matter what it is, they are filibustering, filibustering, filibustering. Here they are. They tell us that they're the great supporters of small business. We brought together a small business bill which will provide affordable loans to businesses which desperately need them so they can expand, so they can create decent-paying jobs, and we barely got any Republican support at all. So if you're asking me, do I think that the Republicans are more interested in creating jobs, expanding the middle class, or are they really interested in defeating anything that President Obama brings forth? Are they more interested in protecting the interest of their wealthy and powerful supporters? I would have to say the latter is true.
Now, Democrats in the White House have attempted to make this a big campaign issue in recent weeks. They've highlighted the fact that groups like the Chamber of Commerce are blanketing the airwaves with ads without disclosing where they're getting their money from.
They don't disclose who's behind the ads. Could be an oil company, could be an insurance company, could be Wall Street. You don't know. Are you going to let special interests from Wall Street and Washington and maybe places beyond our shores come to this state and tell us who our senator should be? That's not just a threat to Democrats, that's a threat to our democracy.
They don't disclose who's behind their ads. Their money could be coming from beyond our shores. President Obama making this a campaign issue. And that, of course, has probably predictably caused this reaction on the right.
I would like to make this the biggest fundraising day in the Chamber's history. I am donating $10,000 to the Chamber of Commerce now.
Because they could sure use the help. That's amazing. Amazing. That was Fox News host Glenn Beck today, encouraging his listeners to fork over their own hard-earned cash to give it to the Chamber of Commerce to promote the outsourcing of American jobs, asking regular Americans who presumably get paychecks and stuff to help out the poor corporate titans. Because, you know, why not? Obama, boo.
In the last 30 years, 55% of all income growth in America went to the top 1%. And what you're seeing is a nation in which a few people not only have tremendous amounts of money, but they are also using that money, as you just indicated, in the political process.
Yes.
Billionaires are spending that money undisclosed, running these horrendous ads all over this country. It is high time Democrats stood up to these billionaires and millionaires and work with the working families of this country to create a nation which does well for all of us and not just for the people on top.
Yeah, the Chamber of Commerce also running this ad in the great state of Missouri.
In the past 2 years, Missouri's lost thousands of good-paying jobs. So why does Robin Carnahan support Card Check, an unfair scheme to grow unions?
Did you see that figure that they flashed on the screen there at the beginning? Missouri lost 120,000 jobs. Take a guess at where some of those jobs went. Ding, 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 ding. That's right. More than 102,000 people who live in Missouri lost their jobs because Missouri companies decided they would rather fire Americans and instead have people in other countries do that work. Chamber of Commerce is all for it. Remember, according to them, outsourcing is good.
There are legitimate values in outsourcing, not only jobs, but work.
The Chamber of Commerce is flooding the airwaves right now with a $75 million ad blitz, almost entirely focused on blaming Democrats for killing jobs, even as they openly support American companies firing Americans to have the work done by people in other countries instead.
Instead of playing politics, I took whatever steps were necessary to stop an economic free fall. I did what we needed to do, even if it wasn't popular, even if it wasn't easy, because y'all did not elect me to do what was easy. You didn't elect me to spend all day looking at the polls and figure out how to keep me in office. You elected me to do what was right.
On policy terms, they have been caught bragging on the stimulus as good policy. I have no doubt that some of them think that health reform is good policy. We know they think that things like a deficit commission or cap and trade or pay-go are good policy because they're on the record supporting them. But they're not going to vote for them because screw policy.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the distinguished gentleman from New York, Mr. Weiner.
Gentleman's recognized.
Great courage to wait until all members have already spoken and then stand up and wrap your arms around procedure. We see it in the United States Senate every single day where members say, we want amendments, we want debate, we want amendment, but we're still a no. And then we stand up and say, oh, if only we had a different process, we'd vote yes. You vote yes if you believe yes. You vote in favor of something if you believe it's the right thing. If you believe it's the wrong thing, you vote no. We are following a procedure. I will not yield to the gentleman, and the gentleman will observe regular order.
New York Congressman Anthony Weiner clearly was unhappy that most Republicans were not going to support a bill to provide more than $7 billion to people sickened by dust from the attack on the World Trade Center, and he launched into a tirade to let them know in no uncertain terms.
Gentleman thinks that if he gets up and yells on it, he's going to intimidate people into believing he's right. He is wrong. The gentleman is wrong. The gentleman is providing cover for his colleagues rather than doing the right thing. It's Republicans wrapping their arms around Republicans rather than doing the right thing on behalf of the heroes. It is a shame, a shame. If you believe this is a bad idea to provide health care, then vote no. But don't give me the cowardly view that, oh, if it was a different procedure, the gentleman will observe regular order and sit down.
But Weiner was just getting going.
The gentleman will sit. The gentleman is correct in sitting. I will not.
This is quite obviously not in order.
Gentleman will suspend.
I will not stand here
Gentleman is recognized.
and listen to my colleagues say, oh, if only I had a different procedure that allows us to stall, and then vote no. Instead of standing up and defending your colleagues and voting no on this humane bill, you should urge them to vote yes, something the gentleman has not done.
Congressman Weiner has a history of railing against Republicans, but this animated rant was also personal because the bill would benefit some constituents. His comments drew a smattering of applause but didn't have an impact.
Question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass H.R. 847?
The bill failed by more than 20 votes.
Representative Weiner was responding to Representative Peter King, who had just spoken before him. Peter King and Anthony Weiner are both co-sponsors of this bill that failed, and we're going to talk about why it failed in just a moment. We did invite Representative King to join us. He is somebody who has joined us in the past quite regularly. He was not able to join us today, but we do have with us Congressman Anthony Weiner, a Democrat from New York. Congressman Weiner, no one has ever doubted that you are a passionate guy. Anybody who's ever followed you in politics, you're passionate. I think most of your colleagues are. But even you said earlier today to somebody, I guess the Brooklyn came out in me. What made you get that mad last night?
Well, this isn't about me or Peter King. You know, for 9 years now, people who got sick because they did the right thing, they came to Ground Zero to try to help their neighbors. Sometimes they were just living in the wrong neighborhood. Those people are quite literally dying every single day. You know, I have a guy that works for me, Ed Colton, that every day I listen to him cough and wheeze. He was a police officer who is now retired. This is what this is about. And, you know, sometimes you think, even in this moment in our political lives, that there are some things that should transcend politics. You have nights like last night, where 95% of Democrats voted to give 9/11 responders health care, and simply because it was a Democrat majority, just about every Republican voted no. And frankly, that was outrageous. And the fact that the excuses that were being made, well, we don't like this being done so quickly, we don't like it being done on this calendar, we don't like it on this day. At the end of the day, I think the American people want us to stand up and vote for what we think is right. And that's what got my goat last night.
Screw what even they believe is good for the country. Screw what even they believe is good for their own districts. They are not voting yes for even things that they agree with, for anything substantive. They are not going to vote yes for anything substantive that this president supports. It's not going to happen.
Recently, one of the Republican leaders in the Senate said that if Republicans take charge of Congress, repeal would be one of the first orders of business.
There will be no compromise on ending this era of runaway spending, deficits, and debt.
I believe it's the fundamental responsibility of all who hold elective office to seek out common ground. It may not be always easy to find agreement. At times, we'll have legitimate philosophical differences. And it may not always be the best politics, but it's the right thing to do for our country. That's why I found the recent comments by the top 2 Republicans in Congress so troubling. The Republican leader of the House actually said that this is not the time for compromise. And the Republican leader of the Senate said his main goal after this election is simply to win the next one.
No compromise on repealing Obamacare, lock, stock, and barrel.
In the end, it comes down to a simple choice. We can spend the next 2 years arguing with one another, trapped in stale debates, mired in gridlock, unable to make progress in solving the serious problems facing our country.
There'll be no compromise on defending the broad mainstream values of the American people in the way that we spend the people's money at home and abroad on issues that go straight to principle and straight to the concern the American people have on spending and taxes and values. There'll be no compromise.
Or we can do what the American people are demanding that we do. We can move forward.
You're not going to earn Republican votes for a second stimulus, for example, by pointing out that it's good policy that creates jobs. We know they already know that. They concede that in their home districts, and they are still not voting for it. And they are unembarrassed about this fact. They are not embarrassed.
Democrats are putting politics over prosperity.
Charging them with hypocrisy, appealing to their better, more practical, more what's best for the country, patriotic angels, is like trying to teach your dog to drive.
If I said fish live in the sea, they'd say no.
Wastes a lot of time, it won't work, and ultimately the dog comes out of the exercise less embarrassed for failing than you do for trying.
So we don't have time for any more games.
And the point we make in this preamble to our pledge is that we are not going to be any different than what we've been.